Only if you want to, or you can be standing, it's up to you. Okay, hello everyone. Before giving the word to our esteemed guest speaker today, Biljana, I just want to have a few words and give you some updates from the club. I know it's the end of January, but I don't know, I still feel like it's the end of December or 1st of January, so Happy New Year. I wish all the best for the upcoming months and 2024. Um, there are some people who are not members of the club here, and I just want to say that Bulgarian Angels Club right now is the biggest angel network here in Bulgaria, and our mission is to support the startup ecosystem here by promoting angel investing and investing in early stage companies. Currently, we just reached a milestone of 100 members, so thank you to everyone who is already part of the club. And we are growing, yes, thank you. Yes, actually we have a target to become 200 members by the end of this year. Let's see how it goes. It's a big target, but it's good to have these kinds of targets. And also we have a net promoter score of 82% and more, which I think is something we can be proud of. I want to use this opportunity also to tell you that we have a new branding. Some of you already know. This is something that we announced at the end of last year, but we are very proud of it. And here is Desi, our visual designer, Desi Sredkova. So if you need any kind of advice or consultation in terms of brand design, please speak with her. She was super helpful in drafting this amazing new logo and branding. I want to say also official welcome to our new members. Krasi is here, so please and welcome him appropriate. You're always nice. I know you're always nice, but still I want to say this. Yes, unfortunately, Ivo and Christo are not here, but they are amazing also entrepreneurs. They're entrepreneurs. They are now trying and getting on the other side of the river and starting to invest in startups. So I'm very happy that we have them in the club. So welcome, Krasi, and thank you for being here today. And I don't know whether I have more slides, actually. Okay. No, these are. Okay, and now I want to welcome Biljana and give her the floor. DSP are our partners since the founding of our club, and they have been supporting us since day one. We have started the topic of legal due diligence during our last retreat, and it sparked a lot of questions, and it was super interesting. And because you are our partners, we decided that we need to deal deeper, delve deeper into the topic. So Biljana is going to tell us what we are going to learn tonight.
Absolutely.
And
then I'll tell you what to learn, and then I'll tell you what you have learned.
Okay, great. That's the best approach. Okay, here it is.
Thank
you very much, Biljana.
You're quite welcome. Okay, so I'm Biljana. DSP stands for Dimitrova, Staikova and Partners, and two of the other partners are here tonight with us. This is Dani and Doni on the front line. And yes, we are continuing the topic from the retreat because we actually got so little from that lecture, which was 1 hour, and we covered like 1/10 of the things that we've planned to cover. How many of you were at the retreat? Okay, thank you. And that's great. So I'll cover most of the things that we talked on the retreat, but I'll try to continue. And don't accept this as a lecture or something that I'm going to tell you. Please feel free to interrupt me at any point. Ask your questions, so we'll be as helpful to you personally as possible. Because we're here tonight, because not only because we've been with the club since the beginning of the club, we created the club, we created the mini fund that Kirill is now managing from London. Uh, but we've been in the ecosystem since its very beginning. Since the first fundings of 11 and Launch Hub, when the companies were very, very happy to get 25K. And we've been with some of the companies since day one, and we've grown with them as they were growing. And that's how we know all the hurts and pains, both for the investors and for the startups. And besides facilitating their investments, we've tried to cover the periods between investment funds and to help them make all these steps from a legal point of view to grow and to be prepared for their, not only for their next funding, but also for their next level of development. Because we believe that a company cannot grow sustainably and effectively without having the correct legal framework. We've tried for the last 5, 6, 7 years to educate the community. We're participating in a number of accelerators, and we've even tried to level up. We're very proud that we participated, and we actually created the new company. We talked about it the last time when we were here. It's the variable capital company. How many of you have heard about it? Okay, so it's almost going live in the end of the year, hopefully. And our team here was part of its creation. It took us 4 years to come here to this day. Hi, this is another member of our team. This is Polly. Polly, please take a seat wherever, where. And so today we'll emphasize on the legal due diligence because it's part of the process of investment and of your decision making. How we'll do this? We'll not talk about legal due diligence in general. We'll concentrate on the legal due diligence that you as angels need to think about when investing in startups. Because the field otherwise is very vast, and we have decided not to give you all the viewpoints, but these that we think that will be practically useful to you personally. It's going to happen like this. Please comment if you have an opinion on the agenda, but we've decided we'll make a general introduction on the main points of the legal due diligence, and then we'll hear from Numi, who are here to present their pitch deck tonight, and then we'll use Naomi, who are very, yes, we're very grateful that you are helping us with this. We'll use their company as a use case, and we will actually go through the main topics of the checklist that we have prepared for you. So you can see in practice how we're doing and how we would do a due diligence on a real company. And, okay. So let's start. Again, please interrupt me at any point with any questions that you may have, because we're doing this for you, so it can be useful to you. Okay, so why would we at all think about legal due diligence? It's because that when investors like you start thinking and start analyzing a company, they usually think only about the business part. They think if it's a good company, if it's a prospective company, if they have a good product, if they have prospective markets, if the valuation is okay, if they are getting good terms, etc., etc. But then comes a time when all these things that the company have given you as information and all these proposals they have given to you need to be validated and verified. And there comes the legal due diligence, because it gives you the opportunity to actually see if all the things that the founders have told you are actually true. And they give you a different perspective, a validation of the information and the data that have been already presented to you in order to make you invest in the company. Because usually founders give you only the good side of things. It's our job to dig in as providers of the legal due diligence, to dig in and to give you enough information to see if those things that have been told to you are true and if there's something else that you need to know about the company. Then you will be able to take an informed decision whether or not to invest in the company. And this is the stage in your investment process that you see all the risks in the company. Believe me, there is no company without a risk. There is no company that has been prepared perfectly for a legal due diligence or have settled its legal stuff perfectly. There is not a single company like this. If it's an early stage company, then they have not thought about legal at all, probably, or very little. And if it's a later stage company, then it has so much stuff that probably something has been left for later stages, or something have not been done correctly. There is not a single company without a risk. Our job is to tell you which are the biggest risks. And based on these biggest risks, you decide if it's a no-go investment, or you can actually take it, but put down some conditions for the company in order for the company to get your money. Basically, these are the so-called pre- and post-closing undertakings that you, as an investor, may demand from a company so they can get your money or so they can use your money in order to settle a few things in the company. I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but so we talk that you usually, as investors, as an angel investors, you look at the things that make you invest in a company or not. So these are first, usually, is the team okay? Some people say that they don't invest in products, they don't invest in companies, they don't invest in markets, they invest in teams. And if they see a team that is good enough, they will invest no matter what the team does, because they know that if this team doesn't have a good product, it will pivot, they will change it, they'll make another company, but this team will succeed in the end. And usually there is a slide, like the last but one slide on every pitch deck that says, this is our team. And there are a few names that are very posh, that they have experience, lots of experience in the company. And they say, this is our team, this is our founder, this is our co-founder, this is our advisor. And you're very happy because it's a success team. However, it's our job in the legal due diligence to check if these people are actually on the team. Because sometimes these people are people that are actually helping. They have decided and they have accepted to be put down in the pitch deck, but they're not part of the team. To be part of the team is to have actually skin in the game. To have incorporated the company as a co-founder, to have invested as much time, effort, or maybe money as the rest of the founders, or to be engaged in some way with a contract and some undertakings that are binding, not just good wishes for the company. That's why we usually check, and we'll check this with Numi, and I'll explain later on the corporate side of the part of the due diligence, that we concentrate on the registered facts, on the signed agreement, and on the real, on-paper, binding engagements of all these team members. Because sometimes they are only pitch deck co-founders. You will definitely analyze the product of the company. And you will see that's an innovative product, that's very cool, that's very prospective, and that you want to have a company that is developing the product. Then it's us that come in, and we have to study if this product actually belongs to the company. Because sometimes in the beginning of the company development, or sometimes on a later stage, some of the intellectual property is actually not taken care of. Maybe the development of the product started when all the founders were employees in some big software company. Maybe in the beginning they had a shareholder or co-founder that afterwards left them but may have claims to the company product. Maybe they used some friend or some friend company to develop some of the product, but they didn't actually got all the rights or didn't pay at all or didn't have a contract at all. This means that the company doesn't have the product. And these are the tricky parts of the product analysis that you have to look into before you get excited about the product, because you cannot invest in a product that does not belong in a company. Then you think probably in which markets this product can be sold. And you say, okay, we'll go to the States, we'll go to Canada, we'll go to Brazil, we'll cover the biggest markets, etc., etc. Let's talk about Poland, they have big population, etc., etc. But if it is a product that actually is connected to some regulation, you will not be able, and your company will not be able to sell this product until they get some licensing, until they get some registration, until they get some procedure done that may be possible but may not be possible for certain countries. And now the hottest topics, especially those that are connected to AI, are consulting in the fintech. They are connected to the fintech, consulting in some tricky areas like even legal AI consulting, health tech, etc., etc. All these hot areas that today use AI and claim that they will provide you services that will just happen like this instead of professional taking care of them. And all these areas need to be regulated, need to be checked if they are actually regulated in the specific new market that you expect this product to develop to and to expand to before you can consider these markets as potential markets that make the numbers provided by the company. Of course, the revenue model is always also affected by regulations, and in these revenue models, sometimes the founders think that they can get commissions from payments. Sometimes they think that they can take fees from all the payments and from all the transactions they go through their products or their platforms, etc., etc. But when we start to dig in how this cash flow is going to be regulated from a legal and from a accounting point of view, they say, well, we haven't thought about that. We haven't thought about taxation, we haven't thought about VAT, we haven't thought about accepting payments that we are actually not ready to accept because we don't have the qualification. And then they have to change their models or engage a third service provider, but the numbers that they have calculated because of these changes will also change. And when you negotiate on investment terms, you are usually promised that you are going to receive veto rights, you're going to receive privileges, you're going to receive all the liquidation preferences, tag along, drag along, all the things that are usually associated with the privileges of the investors. However, it is our job to check if they can actually give you these privileges. Because most of the term sheets now, they say they include preferred shares or preferred Series A or some fancy name shares, and they're designed for limited liability companies. Limited liability company in Bulgaria doesn't have different kinds of shares. They actually have one type of share, and anything that is promised above this needs to be regulated in a different way. Sometimes it is not possible to receive a privilege because of some previous engagement or some previous obligation from a previous round that the founders have given as a promise, as an undertaking to the previous investors. This is also our job to check if all the things that have been promised to you as investors in the new round are actually doable. So as you can see, all the things that you look into an investment are actually things that need to be checked in the legal due diligence, to be verified, to be validated, and then you can take your informed decision whether to go on or not to go on with an investment. So who does the due diligence? You as angel investors, let's say, this is usually the situation, you participate in some bigger deal. That's the usual case, right? Okay. So usually it's the lead investor because he puts the biggest amount of money, and that's why he puts in the biggest effort and the biggest investment in the due diligence. And it's one of the best situations because usually if it's a lead investor, it is an experienced investor. They have procedures, they have legal consultants that have gone through this path of analyzing all the legal aspects, and they will in the end provide you with a report that you can just read in, or you can just be happy that the legal advisors of the lead investor have checked everything. And if the lead investor is investing, then you can go on and invest too. Some investment platforms also have this service for that they either do the due diligence themselves or they invest in companies that have undergone due diligence with another lead investor, and they provide you services, the service of making sure that somebody has done the legal due diligence, and then you can get on this train with them. I think SeedBlink are like this. There are some international platforms also that provide this. And sometimes this legal due diligence, most of the times it's related also, it's combined with financial due diligence and technical due diligence, depending on the size of the platform. Vendor legal due diligence is the new kid on the block. Vendor due diligence is a due diligence that the company actually orders for itself. This is because the company is getting ready for the next round of investment, and this is typical for more mature companies, of course, but this is legal due diligence that the company orders so it can be prepared for the new investors. There is a legal consultant, an outside legal consultant that comes in between rounds, checks every important aspect of the company from a legal point of view, and then signs a report and says, by this date, everything is okay with the company, or this and this needs to be done. And then within 6 months or prior to the next round, the same legal law office comes in and checks if all the things that were wrong 6 months ago have been corrected, and they sign and say, okay, now everything is okay with the company. And when the investor comes, it doesn't have to spend 3 months, 4 months in checking, in legal due diligence, starting from the day of the term sheet, but they would rather receive a document that is updated to the date of the term sheet, and the company will be ready to proceed much more faster. Angel groups like this provide the opportunity of the investors to, of the angel investors to combine all their efforts and to execute the legal due diligence. And for an angel investor, I think that's the best opportunity, because in these cases, the scope of the legal due diligence can be customized for the specific needs and the requirements of the angel investors participating. It is typical, but it also depends on the organization and, of course, of the budget of the angel investors group, that some basic legal due diligence will be done prior to the company presenting to the angel investors. So if this is a service that you would like to introduce, please talk to Eli. And then, of course, you can do it by yourself. And after today, you'll be definitely prepared for this, almost. Okay, then. Let me see if I skipped something. Okay, so how deep to analyze? Of course, the depth of the analysis depends on the maturity of the company and on the stage that the company is at. As we said, early stage companies, they usually don't have almost anything. They probably have articles of association, but they won't have shareholders agreement, because they expect that shareholders agreements are only when the investors come. And probably they will have some terms of use that they have stolen from, taken, borrowed from somebody that does the same thing as them. And probably they will have an employment agreement that their accountants have provided them with, but that doesn't say anything about intellectual property. And, well, that's it. And then if the company is Series A or beyond, they're supposed to have much more. They're supposed to have settled every material relationship with contractors. They are supposed to settle all their intellectual properties or their personal data handling and all their financials in the respective contracts. So if a company doesn't have this documentation, it's also a sign of their lack of maturity in our organization. I'll give you an example. Some of the companies don't have, in the early stages, they don't have the budget to take care of all the legal things. They have to think of terms of use, they have to think of GDPR, they have to sign contracts with their biggest contractors and their biggest partners, and they have to settle things with their service provider that develops the software, etc., etc. And they don't have the budget from the very beginning, from day one, until they get your investment to settle all these things, but they have a roadmap. And if a company doesn't have all the legal documentation, but they have a plan for it, for trademarks, for patents probably, or for other legal aspects to be settled, that means that this is a company that has a plan, and it will succeed not only from a legal point of view, but they have probably a plan for all other aspects of development of the company. And the lack of some settlement of legal stuff shows the lack of any possibility for the company to develop in the right direction. For example, open source is something that is a hot topic now, especially when it's related to AI-generated code. And when you combine open source with AI-generated code and you add it in the core of the company product, if it's a software product, and nobody takes care and nobody thinks of the intellectual property, it is a sign that this company doesn't take care of its main assets. We are talking about this because now we have developed and we have introduced in our company a special direction of IP due diligence and management, because we have found that this is an epidemic of lack of settlement of intellectual property rights for almost every company that is developing software products. They use AI-generated code, they use databases, they incorporate the personal data and huge bulks of data in the AI. They use open source licenses, but nobody in the company takes care of registering all these things, of registering the licenses, of analyzing the licenses that they can use, and of thinking of the effect of using all this free stuff for a merchandise, for a product that they're going to sell to end users. And of course, if a company is offering a service or a product that does not comply with regulations, if they're in fintech, for example, and they have no clue that they have some legal procedure that they have to go through, or that they have to go through this procedure in every country that they go to, or, for example, if they are not aware that they cannot give medical or legal or some other advice in every country around the world if it's AI-generated advice, then probably they're not mature enough to build the empire that you want them to build. How deep to go depends also on your investment experience. Because if you're experienced investors, you will probably know where to dig in every single company. And if it is a company that is developing some intellectual property product, you'll probably concentrate on the IP. But if it is a company that doesn't have this product, but they need to build a strong team, you'll probably go into the corporate structure direction. I don't tell you right now to skip some part, but with time, you'll probably get the experience of knowing where to dig in. Like, for example, some of the funds that we've been working with lately, they already know when they sign a term sheet with a company, what sections of the legal due diligence to order and what is irrelevant for the specific company, for their team, and for their product. And one thing that you always want to look at if you're doing the legal due diligence or alone, if we're doing it for you, is if there is something done previously for the startup in a previous funding round. This will show you what have been detected before and how the company has coped with these problems. And if the company has ignored them completely, this will give you an idea how the company is treating their investors in general. Okay, it doesn't work. Of course, we have a few more theoretical topics, and then, well, I'll give the floor to Naomi. So when you do the legal due diligence, and what documents you are usually will be required to sign in these processes. So at pitch deck level, or at the level of where you access public information or website information, you obviously don't need anything. This is the first level of inspection that you do in a startup. Then what is not included in the legal due diligence, but what is advisable for you to do is to make your reference checks, to make your valuation validation, and to negotiate and to see how these negotiated terms will actually fit in the whole picture of the investment schedule of the startup. Usually, before signing the term sheet, you would better get some financial documentation, because signing a term sheet only based on information provided by the company, it's not a very good idea. So probably at this point, before signing the term sheet, you don't make the legal due diligence, but you make at least a basic high-level financial due diligence. And if you cannot do it alone, consult with somebody that can. Because the term sheet, it's binding about the numbers. It may not be binding about the other rights and privileges and obligations that the parties may have, but it will be very difficult to renegotiate the numbers after signing the term sheet. That's why you will be interested in getting some financial documentation as a proof of the number that have been provided by the company, and that's where you may be asked to sign an NDA. Because if the first levels are public information, then this may be considered as a trade secret or as a confidential information, and then it's reasonable for you to sign an NDA, getting some inside company documentation. Then it's the time for you to sign the term sheet. Usually the legal due diligence comes after the term sheet. And the term sheet reads that the investment will be done after a legal due diligence, maybe financial, maybe a technical due diligence will be conducted. And if and when this is the analysis from the legal due diligence is ready, and if it doesn't show a huge gap between the provided information and the results from the legal due diligence, then you as investors will provide your investment. There could be also a condition, what happens if the legal due diligence deviates and its result deviate hugely from the provided information. You can even negotiate some fee, or which is called a breakup fee, usually, of what happens if the legal due diligence says, okay, finds things that they have been hidden from you, withheld from you. Withheld. And after that, only after the legal due diligence have been completed, then you signed a shareholders agreement and an investment agreement. And usually, this is where any findings from the legal due diligence will be incorporated. The legal due diligence may have red flags that will be incorporated in the shareholders agreement, and it will state that only and after the company takes care of these flags, it may have this condition, then you will give your money to the company. Absolutely.
So how many of you have done a legal due diligence so far? Okay, Eden, Dancho, can you share something that you found during the legal due diligence, if you have some story to share?
Yes, sure.
Maybe I can give you a microphone without a microphone.
No, I
Okay.
So am I.
I'm going to say that you don't need it.
Okay. I guess you can hear me now. We have always found issues with the legal due diligence, always. Never ever we have been given a clean sheet saying everything was fine. The point is, to what extent are the issues? I mean, how severe they are, and what kind of mitigation measures can be tackled. In the, let's say, seed stage startups, a lot of the funding has been provided via quasi loans, some kind of additional capital, how do you call it?
Installments.
Installments. And sometimes like, oh, I just go to the bank and I deposit something. All of this needs to be carefully settled. Why? Because we typically invest with equity instrument, and equity always comes after the lending, whatever sort of lending. I mean, doesn't matter whether it's primary lending or subordinated debt, really doesn't matter. Something that I personally never check, never ever check, because I trust the guys that are standing in front of me. But sometimes in the due diligence, it simply says, this owner has been sentenced, I don't know if this is the right word, but we'll check it later, for VAT, let's say, infringements, let's call it like this. And there is this case, that case, that case. In another company, typically these are cases where you can wait for certain time until the, how do you call it, when there is an expiration of the fine and of the liability. When actually there is a expiration of the liability, and these guys are just waiting. But you know you don't want to deal with a person that has tried to screw the state with VAT issues. And I don't do that. I cannot do that. But a legal person, I mean, they do that. Then IP is always an issue, as Biljana says, always an issue. There has been subcontractors hired for this and that. Loans, contracts are never bulletproof. I mean, startups in the seed stage are rarely mature. What else? A recent investment, a very sexy one. There has been several domains bought, but one of them just accidentally bought on the name of the founder and on the name of the company.
That's actually a thing that happens in almost every company. We find usually at least one domain in each company that was registered before registering the company by the founder when he got the idea of the product. Nah, sometimes. Honestly? Sometimes they just hold it like a hostage.
I'm pretty sure that's the point. I mean, what can you do with the domain? It's not just a rocket science. I mean, if you have a good brand, you can just tweak your domain a little bit, pay a little bit more money, but really. The same happens with the trademark, and this is a little bit more, I would say, severe. It's one thing to purchase a domain with your card, like, oh, my Google Pay or whatever. It's just remembered on my browser, and I just...
I don't have online banking on the company, etc. We've heard all the excuses.
Yeah. But when you do a trademark on your name, it's a clear abuse. You should have this in mind, and really... Another interesting thing is when you see these trains on the other companies of the founder. It's a bit tricky. You need to be careful with that. And I don't check these trains. I just go for the business, for the team, for the market potential, etc., etc. And yeah, it's tricky when you see. Then there are a lot of other relationships that you need to be careful, and typically a good lawyer, and we have an excellent lawyers here, not just good, what they do is they can check the relationship between the founder, his partners, their companies. I mean, it's a huge spider of relationship that you need to be careful now with all the sanctions that you have. You have Russia sanctions, you have Iran sanctions, you have Syria sanctions. This is so deep that you cannot imagine. large companies like, I mean, everything larger than 50, 60 million annual turnover, they don't allow Mickey Mouse to do business with them. They screen everybody. And I saw on one of the previous slides, there was vendor due diligence. It is a must. They don't allow toilet paper to be bought unless the suppliers are carefully screened. There are qualification questionnaires. I mean, these are good practice. Of course, it complicates business, but this is very, very, very important, because if you see that there is in another company, Serioja Beryoskin, for example, and this gentleman happens to be somehow sanctioned, you are in deep shit. Yeah, absolutely. I think we stressed enough how important this one is. It is a must. And can I just touch something? I think you share it a couple of times, but for me, a good collaboration between the legal due diligence and the financial one is a must. I mean, these guys should work together, because some things are popping up from the legal side, needs to be checked on the finance side, and a lot of things are popping up on the finance side, they need to be checked on the legal side. It's absolutely a must that these guys are working together. Especially the founders' loans, especially the liabilities.
Especially the founders' loans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I'll just share a few tips that I've learned over the years. One is to use a list. I'm very bad at that. And I tend to really get caught up in the excitement of investing in a company. I'm involved in a lot of very, very high-tech companies. Doesn't mean electronic high-tech, but top technology companies. So it's very easy to get sucked into that. And secondly, I think it's a really good practice to tell the company that they've got one shot at telling you all of their dirt. Put it all in writing. I want to know it all. And if I find anything else that isn't on the list, I'm out.
Actually, this is something that is put down in the documentations. It's mostly used in the M&As, but it can be used in investment documentation too. Oh, right. Okay. It's called disclaimer schedule, and it actually contains all the exceptions from the representations and warranties that are included in the agreement. And you not only have one shot of giving the information, but actually sign under the disclaimer schedule that all the things that the company needs to provide as information, needs to disclose to the investors. So that's a great approach. And it is usually done with a different kind of documents, with a declaration, affidavits, etc., but it is done with in the investment procedure. So it's a great approach. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you. I went through due diligence, legal, and also I did for others. And I think the biggest point, besides what you mentioned, we check the owners, founders. Of course, assuming that they are good people and not lying, we check the contracts. And in the contracts, the contractual agreements that they have with their customers, there can be a lot of skeletons there. For example, the contract of 80 pages can have one segment that says, if you get bought by someone, we get the people, or we buy the people, or we buy out the IP for a cost level, something like that, which can be a deal breaker in some cases for startups, by the way. Also, of course, we had cases where the owners were playing with crypto, and then it's irregulated in some countries. And it exposed a big corporation to a big risk from that perspective. Also cases where owners, founders had conflict of interest between companies in different regions, or as a suppliers. They use another company for suppliers for the company. So all of this needs to be checked really detailed, and no one in this room except the lawyers can get to that level of detail. So it's a must.
Indeed. So the checklist that we have actually given out, it's about 10 times shorter than the ones that we use. So,
Sorry, one other thing I'd like to share, and
Yes,
that
of
is
course.
to get the company or the seller to always make a written representation that all of the technology that's even remotely connected to what you're buying, you own part of. So they don't have something that that they haven't turned over to the company, they're holding personally, they're holding in a different company, or they've invested with some other friends some other way. So you make sure that anything that they do that's related to what you're buying, you've got a part of.
yeah, that's something that we usually do from the very start of the due diligence. We call them these discovery sessions. We sit down with the company and we ask them all these questions, and we say to them that we will put down all this in an affidavit. And sometimes after we say this to them, other additional things come up. Because it's one thing to ask them, and then there's another thing to tell them that they have to sign that these are all the things. So that's absolutely valid. Okay, we have just a couple of more things. You obviously have seen a legal room and a data room. I just wanted to mark here for you that there sometimes could be different types of accesses and different types of legal rooms, because when usually somebody else makes the legal due diligence, and if it's a more mature company, then the company will have its own legal room, because it will have made it during the first stages of investment, and will add on and develop during the later stages of development. And if it's a mature company, you'll probably expect this company to have a legal room, a data room, where they have all their documentation. And actually, we judge by a company on the way that the documentation is organized in the legal room. Believe me, if it's a hectic legal room, we don't expect much of the results of the analysis. Yes?
I suppose it's not on the priority list of the startups, especially if they are in early stage.
Actually, it's an early stage, that's why I say if it's a more mature company, you would expect that they will have a perfect legal room. And sometimes I want to turn your attention to the fact that sometimes legal rooms have different levels of access. Yes, please.
What is a legal room?
It's just a space on a cloud which has been shared with the investors and their legal advisors when the company uploads documentation which is related to the legal due diligence or to the financial due diligence. And it's a space, online space, where people have access to the documentation so they can review them. And that's why I'm turning your attention, because some of the data rooms are public, like this is our pitch deck, these are our financials, take a look at them. Or if you have interest, this is our legal room, sign an NDA and we'll give you access. Or this is a priority legal room or a data room, name it whatever you like. If you have signed a term sheet, or if you have signed a term sheet over a certain amount, then you have access to this data room. We have seen data rooms with 3 levels of access. And that's where you have to know, because many companies consider sometimes their most important contracts as trade secrets, and they don't share them with the majority, even with some angel investors. Be prepared. And of course, for our clients, what we do is we always build up a legal room of our own, because if the company, if it doesn't have its own legal room, we would like them to structure the documentation in the process of uploading them. This helps them to organize their own documentation, and we actually guide them through the process of finding out what they have and what they don't have. And I don't have access to this. Let me see. Very quickly. what you will expect in the end of a legal due diligence. What there are usually two types of outcomes two types of reports that you would expect. One is the so-called red flag report. So these are the things, the biggest problems that we have to look out for. This is a review that gives an outline of the main findings of the company, about the company, and then a list of the flags, the red flags, the biggest problem that the legal advisors have encountered. In addition to the red flag report, you can have a full scope report. The full scope report usually has a detailed analysis of all the aspects of the legal documentation and the legal findings. Not only that, they give you the full scope legal due diligences. They give you different levels of the risks. Sometimes they're even organized like street lights. They have the red flags, they have the yellow flags, they have the green flags. Something is wrong. The green flag is something is wrong, but it can easily be amended. And then the yellow flags, for example, are, well, it's not a huge deal, but it's not nothing, so pay attention. And usually, the full scope reports, they come with recommendation. What needs to be done from the company in order to fix it, and when? Does it have to be prior to the investment? Like, for example, settling an additional investment from monetary installment from a founder, so that the investment you give is not used for returning this payment, and things like this. Or, for example, if the company doesn't have GDPR internal documentation, let the company undertake for it to have it in within 3 months after the investment. All these reports usually come with an executive summary. So if you don't want to read the entire report, which could be hundreds of pages sometimes, and if you go through the executive summary, you will be able to make a decision whether or not to invest. It's good for the report to have an indication about the affidavits, the declarations that we already discussed, and to make a quick summary of what undertakings and what declarations, representations, and warranties have the founders and the company undertaken. So you can make sure that all they have said and they have not said is true. And then all these recommendations and red flags to be divided in the so-called CPs, conditions precedent, and post-investment undertakings, which will be bound with certain consequences if the founders do not oblige with them. If they do not cover all the conditions precedents, they don't get the investment, even if the shareholders' agreement is signed. And if they don't get the post-investment obligations done within the terms, they can get sanctions, or even they can lose the investment. We've seen cases like this, where the investor has said, this is so important for me that I don't want my investment to stay in the company if you don't do this. I don't know, I think we're done. Yes, and now it's time for Numi. Shall I give it a clicker?
Okay, here you go.
Hello. My name is Vasilin. I'm from Numi. Thank you for inviting me today. I'm a little bit nervous. Uh, let's start. 1 year ago, we were at the checkout line in one big store, and we waited more than an hour, and we decided that there should be a better way. And then we had a couple of conversations with store owners and found out that there are a lot of issues in this industry. One of the biggest one is finding and keeping staff, and the other significant one is operating store in rural areas is a little bit expensive, at least. So we decided that we can think of some technical solution on these problems, and we mapped out in our heads what this solution, what properties this solution should have. So we decided that it should be cashierless, it shouldn't need staff, it should be able to operate 24/7, and it should be flexible and to be able to be installed everywhere. So our solution is NumiStore. It's flexible. The flexible format means it could be installed in existing stores as well as in standalone containers. It could operate 24/7 because it's autonomous. Because we are using computer vision to track the products which are taken from the shelves and added to the virtual basket, this allows us to have real-time inventory tracking as well as very detailed insights. And that's the main point of the cashierless checkout. So in the picture on the top right corner, there is a real-time example of our solution. My co-founder is picking one product, we're detecting that and adding to the virtual basket. So after the client exits the store, we automatically check out them and send the invoice, the receipt through email. So we started to build this solution and thought about what are the best use cases for that. And while I'm having an electric car, and on some occasions where I'm charging there is nothing, you can see example again on the top right corner. This is one charging location.
On the way to Plovdiv.
Sorry?
On the way to Plovdiv.
And on these charging locations, there are nothing except the charging point. And we had discussions with one of the charging station operators, and they have interest in installing such stores on their locations. Our main target at the moment is the Balkans, because it's easier for us to operate in this region. The EV market is growing as well as the infrastructure for that. And here are some of our competitors. We are not entirely unique. There are 3 types of competitors. Some of them are technology providers only, others are operators, and some of them, like Self-Juxta and Sensei, are operating their own stores as well as building their own technology. We want to be in that segment. The different thing, our solution is not entirely different from theirs, but these companies are not operating in our region. So they are focused on Central and Western Europe and USA. Our idea is to, next slide. So our idea is to build these stores, sell to our partners, and operate them. For that, we'll get fee, which we estimate at the moment to be 10%, but maybe we'll need to negotiate that. And one of the our main selling points is that we can save up to 5,000 euro monthly per per store. Thank you. Okay, my team. I'm Vasilin. I have experience with 20 years of development, worked at different companies. Radko is my CTO. We have worked with him in other companies together. Petya is our data analyst. She happens to be also my wife. And Bujidar is our person that's doing everything non-tech related. Basically every operations, communications with NRA and other such institutions. Thank you.
If you can come a little bit closer, because I feel like you're hiding there. We're not biting. Okay, maybe we can have a couple of questions. I'm sorry, can I use this one? Yeah.
Hey, thank you for the pitch. I've recently been in London and there is Amazon store which sells service and it's operate like similar to what you described. But at the door, I was seeing always a security guy or something like that. So how you're going to remove that person and your solution is going to work better?
It's obvious that we cannot beat Amazon at the moment. They have huge resources. Our solution is similar to theirs. Basically, they are our inspiration for that. And the security guy on the front, at the beginning, we will avoid that person while installing the first stores on locations where it's the people that will enter the store will be more, let's say, chosen. I don't know how to describe that, but for example, EV owners usually won't be that type of people which will try to steal something.
Trust people, that's great.
I was concerned about the exact same thing. So we're seeing that even in large cities in the United States, in large stores that have actual physical security, people are en masse stealing stuff, like organized stealing. And I was wondering, are there technical solutions that can solve that problem? Like if you are only allowed to enter your store once you sort of check your card, maybe then stealing is not possible because you will always charge them for what they picked up. The other problem that I've seen with especially the businesses that I've worked for is that people often argue that they didn't receive what they paid for. And so you said something about computer vision. Is that enough to sort of build a case for how should I say, removing the risk of arguments as to what is picked up and what is paid?
Okay, so the first question, so entering a store is happening via scanning a QR code from the app, so we know who is inside. And at the moment, I'm not entirely sure about the legal aspect of that, but eventually we can charge person who has taken something from the store without paying that, because we have the payment information, and we can charge that that person later if we don't detect something. Regarding the other question about the computer vision, at the moment, for our case, it's enough, and we have enough cameras that are tracking almost from every angle. And if we misdetect something, we are building an option in the application where you can mark something that you have not taken. So we will not charge back the amount. And eventually, before doing that, we'll check the cameras to see if the person has right.
last question.
I appreciate your speech. Yeah, really cool idea. The three, I will mark the three questions. First of all, you mentioned that you are planning to set up these stores in the rural areas. And we see comments from our friends here that they have experience in London and some major US cities. And my experience, based on demography, is that people who are living in rural areas are less attended to commit crime. So you're on the safe side if you will be in the rural areas. That's one thing. Second thing, also in the same stores, I've seen combination of technology, which is multiple cameras and RFID markers on each item you sell. And the third one, which for me is also interesting, you are providing, like you're presenting yourself as a provider of technology, correct? And all the competitors you've mentioned, they are retailers obtaining the technology. So here's like a very specific question. The three questions are, where are you? Your location. Second, who you are. Are you a provider or retailer? And the third one, is that technology sufficient? Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding the technology, our first approach was with RFID stickers. It was a great experiment and it has its advantages, but more or less it has more disadvantages compared to computer vision, because you have to somehow stick every sticker to every product, which is time consuming and costly. Next is the cost of the sticker itself. We found antennas which are cheap, but they don't work great with metal and water bottles. So we had to try with expensive ones, which is eating the markup of the products and doesn't make a lot of financial sense in this case. There are a couple of technologies that could be added eventually. We can add in future weight sensors. So if you pick something, there is weight sensor that's telling something's picked from that. For example, we can have fruits or whatever, which is dependent on that. For some products, it makes sense to have RFID. But in most cases, the computer vision will be enough. And regarding the stores in rural areas, if we take the account that some crime could happen, we talked with some companies that are securing the store, so it can offset the damages. And what was the third question? Sorry. Okay. So our competitors, some of them are technology providers. Others are, there are three types: technology providers, store operators, and combined. We wanted to be only store operators, only technology providers. But when we talked with potential operators of the stores, mainly the EV charging networks, they don't want to operate them. So we have the option either to operate them ourselves or find a partner which can operate the stores. And initially, we'll be the operators as well. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
I don't know whether it does work.
Is it on? Shall I sing something?
Okay.
For the recording, they need me to be on. So the fun part is that this time, after we've done the first talk, I was able to answer some of your questions. I barely stopped myself. Can I answer that? Can I answer that? Okay, so can we switch? Yes, please. So what we did with Vesco was the same thing that we do with our other startups. We sat down for what was supposed to be 15 minutes that turned into an hour and 15 minutes and went through the basics of what on these main components from a usual legal due diligence. What we did was we discussed the corporate structure, and we found out all these things that could come out as possible risks from the structure that is not yet mature as like a later stage company. And we discussed the material agreements, the regulations implications, employment and option pools. We barely mentioned them because it's a company that has not yet introduced their option plan yet. We emphasized on intellectual property, and we discussed GDPR. So, yes, I have my notes here, and I filled in my checklist, and I'll tell you the things that we discussed and the things that you mentioned that could come up in a company, what we found out about NUMI. And what we did was we identified these things, and we actually discussed what needs to be done in order these things to be not fixed, but managed properly from a legal point of view. Because all the things that we found out, our findings here, are something that is traditional for a company at this early stage, and that just needs to, be upgraded from a legal point of view in order to be done properly. The good thing is they're not irreversible problems at all. So I need to give the example here because we already discussed that the team sometimes does not reflect completely the cap table, and it's not a must. Sometimes the team is engaged partially as advisors, partially as employees, partially as freelance contractors, etc. It's not an obligatory precondition for all the team members to be co-founders. In this case, for example, Vesco is the founder of the company, and we are expecting the joining of the other founders at a later stage, probably anytime soon. But the fact is that currently Vesco is the sole owner of the company, and probably prior to the investment, or at some point after the investment, the other co-founders will join, correct? Okay, there's a good reason for that, because some of the founders have not settled all their other relations, and it's probably wiser for them to join where they have no other implications. We have one person working for the company pro bono, which is great at this point, which is a normal thing for every starting company. The thing is that this needs to be also to be settled, and obviously they don't have an option plan yet. They have the vision, but that's natural for them not to have an option plan in a company with at a so early stage. And this will probably be something good to be put down in the term sheet, probably, or at a later stage in the shareholders agreement. What percentage of the company may be set aside for options, and who is going to provide these options? And are they going to dilute the investors? Or are they going to dilute only the founders? This is something to be settled in the shareholders agreement. The easy part is that the articles of association of the company are as simple and short as possible. They don't have a shareholders agreement. They don't have any implications from previous rounds or from other investors. But of course, they have one of the co-founders that has given a loan to the company. And of course, that's typical. And I'm mentioning it because, as Jordan said, that's something typical. And that's how people do it in the very beginning. And that's how they say that companies are financed. Accountants actually advise people to give that as a simple investment instrument from the very beginning, from shareholders to the company. And that's something that needs to be settled before the company gets the loan, or if it's not settled before the company gets the investment, then the investment documentation need to set out explicitly what is going to happen with this loan. And if the loan may be returned with the investment money, because, for example, some of the VCs, they don't have the option for this. They explicitly need to set in their investment agreements that their money cannot be used for refunding loans or additional capital installments, etc. But because you're not bound with that, you can actually calculate this and build your valuation and build your share calculations based on how much money need to go out of the company to settle existing loans in general. So the main agreements that are involved in the whole settlement are a lot, because they plan to probably buy or rent the whole structure, correct. Settle relations with the EV providers, correct. I'm looking at my notes, probably rent the land where you'll put them, or the space in the building where they put them if it's not open air. And you're going to integrate them with coffee machines or some other drink machines. You're going to insure them, and you're going to buy the, if you're using the tickets and the tourniquets, I believe they were called like this, which are supplied somewhere from China, for example. The good thing is that, all these agreements are not existing at the moment, and they can be drafted properly. What means properly, from a legal due diligence point of view, is that when a contract is signed, if the contract needs to be dissolved, it doesn't bring down the whole company. Because there are contracts that say that there will be huge compensations, or that cannot be assigned to third parties, or if they cannot be terminated, and etc., that actually prevent the company from terminating them and from replacing them at a later stage with a similar provider or a vendor. So any of these contracts is okay as long as it can be terminated on regular market terms and doesn't have to bring a huge problem to the company if the company decides to change their suppliers. In terms of IP, they have actually made all the development of the software internally. Of course, as having only one founder who is not actually employed, right? We need to settle this, and we need to make sure that all the IP from the very beginning, even before the company has been registered, will be endorsed in the company. Of course, at this stage, the intellectual property is not accounted for as an asset in the company. This also needs to be taken care of, because usually when there is an IP product and we need to cross-check it with financing, with the financial legal due diligence, it comes up that nobody has taken care of accounting for the work of the developers into non-material assets, non-tangible assets. And this is something that needs to be done in order to form the valuation of the company based on the valuation of the product, especially if it's a non-tangible product. What we have also detected with the company is that they're using YOLO correct, which is an open source instrument. And of course, it needs to be reviewed in view of licenses and in view of incorporation in software and in view of using it for commercial purposes. They're planning to switch the model, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, and what we have, and what we will definitely advise is to have a person that is going to take in the company, a technically educated person that will take care of monitoring and listing every open source library or anything that is used so that it will be tracked, so it can be analyzed, and so in the future they can have complete idea of what their product can be used for and how. The good thing is that they have put up a repository in GitHub in the name of the company, which is actually for us an indication that the intellectual property rights on the software can be claimed by the company. And little things like these, from a technological point of view, can be used afterwards to transfer all the IP rights to the company. In terms of regulations, there are a few things that need to be taken in consideration. And one thing that we discussed is that many of the products that they plan to sell are they don't require some specific regulation, but when they decide to sell tobacco and alcohol, which is we think is going to be for us, it's going to be a very sought for product. They need to get well specific regulation taken care of in order to, and probably introduce some measures to verify if the people that are buying are over 18. The good thing is that they have done something, well, they have done something that is huge, and they have actually confirmed with the Bulgarian tax authorities about how things are going to be checked out and how this is going to be regulated and accepted by the tax authority. Because usually the financial documents that needs to be issued to a buyer needs to be issued within the premises of the shop, and they have confirmed already, which for me is huge, that they can actually make the checkout at the exit, and this will not be a violation of the taxation legislation. From a GDPR point of view, they have decided to use external provider, so they will not actually get the financial data of their clients. In their app, they will store only information that is required for a person to register in the app, which is perfectly okay from a legal point of view, but they will export all the services related to financial documentation and financial information to the service provider that they're going to use, which is the correct solution and will save them a lot of pain. They don't have to be PCI compliant by definition, etc. Well, that's it. So we've covered the main. Yes, I think there are. There's okay. So questions. This is time for questions. Yes.
Very biased Silicon Valley. But is the assumption here that legal due diligence is only done for price rounds and never for convertible notes and
Oh,
safes?
no. No, sorry if we have left you with that impression. The thing is that here legal due diligence are made for almost everything. And why? Because tickets here are much lower than usual. Because in the States, for example, making a legal diligence for a ticket or for a round for less than 200 and sometimes more than 500,000 is not considered necessary. Here, regardless if it's an equity investment, it's a quasi-equity investment, we tend to do these things because all tickets are a little bit lower.
Yeah.
And
so
rounds
it's
are a
very
little bit
different.
smaller.
Okay.
So, but we don't make a difference. We don't differentiate from quasi-equity and equity investment, and it doesn't matter. It's an investment. You give your money.
Yeah.
Probably you need to look into some different aspects of the company, but the general idea is the same.
I just have never seen legal due diligence on any non-price rounds, like whether it's 200K or $5 million bucks. Never. It's just very different here. Thank you.
I thought it should be vice versa. If the rounds are smaller, you wouldn't do legal due diligence.
Yeah, if they're smaller, you wouldn't do the legal due diligence, but that's not here.
Okay.
That's in
Okay.
in Europe and in
I
the
see.
States. Sorry if I said something different.
More questions?
Okay.
Asparuk, do you have a question?
Yeah.
I saw that a few of the people in the team are people that have been working for services companies, etc., but software companies, right? Some of those have, I'll put it bluntly, shitty contracts that are saying whatever you do in your free time or work time is owned by us. Have you done any checks on whether there is any conflicts there, and is there a chance to resolve those if you discover something like this?
Okay, so I left my previous employer when I started working on the company, so I don't have that problem. For Radko, I'm not entirely sure. We haven't checked that in his contract, so maybe we'll have to issue that to address that issue. With Petya, we also don't have problems because she sent official letter to the employer, so they answered that it's okay to work on a different company. And with the other co-founder, Bujidar, he also doesn't have any problems with previous employer, but he was going through divorce, so we decided that that's one of the issues that one of the main points that we didn't incorporate the LLC, the company in another way. We were waiting for that issue to be resolved.
And the good, yeah. The good thing is that not all of these restrictions are valid. There is this constitutional right in Bulgaria, which is the right to work, and there are some rights of the employer to get everything that you're working in your business hours, in your working hours, and when you it's not that it's illegal, it's just not always valid. And for example, if they tell you that you it can exist, it doesn't make the whole contract invalid, but it makes the specific stipulation invalid. It can be actually claimed by the employee that this is an invalid restriction. Most of the time, companies, especially companies that come from the States, they just translate their US employment agreements in Bulgaria, and they are advised by their Bulgarian legal advisors that this may not be completely valid in Bulgaria, but they still leave these on the principle that it's better in than out. You're done. What kind of question do you have?
Zero questions.
It's wine time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Specifically for the company. I've already stumbled upon 2 cases where we were limited to execute a deal by the connection of some of the founders with political people, like persons. What are the implications there? Does that depend on what is the product and the domain, or should we be worried about something like this when we don't see anything that can be influenced by the fact that they are connected to political persons?
If you're just a private investor, you don't have to abide these things by default.
Let me clarify.
Yeah.
My worry, I don't have a problem with the fact. My worry was that follow-up investment rounds for this company may be put at risk because of this.
There are a few risks that I usually see. First of all, if it's a political person or a person that works in the government or a municipality, and if your company, the company wants to deal with the state or with the municipality, it may be prevented due to conflict of interest. Then there is this, usually all these people that work in public offices, they're required to leave behind or to quit their private investments in some cases. And if they do, if they don't, it's well a problem for them, not for the company per se. But there is always the reputational risk.
I think, yeah, they are not working for the government. They are not, but in one of the cases, one of those founders' mother was a very high-ranked political person. In the other case, it was again some close relation, but not a direct involvement with the government. And the problem that was stated there by certain VCs that we've spoke with was that if there's money coming from the European funds, that is restricting them from investing into such thing. Have you seen something like this?
But this depends on the fund. And the fund has clear restrictions, and they usually make very specific KYC, anti-money laundering, etc., procedures. But there's not like a general rule. Usually, because if the founder is not a political person, this shouldn't be a problem. But if the specific fund has this restriction of connected persons also, then we need to look into and if they are aiming any of those funds, yes, of course, they need to, well, they cannot change motherhood, but yeah. So it's, yeah, they also need to mitigate the reputational risks, and that's why they don't at all consider eligible companies that are structured like this. Not that they're prevented by law, but they are operational agreements.
Thank you.
I think it's time for wine now. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, Biljana, and the whole team of DSP for having this seminar. I personally learned a lot. So I would like to invite you for some more wine and some bites, and let's continue the conversation.
I want to change the slide.
Yeah. Well, do you have something at the end?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And if you have more questions for Biljana, now is the time to get her attention and free answers.
I'm here, definitely.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to Vesco. Vesco, thank you for being here. I know it's hard, but you can continue speaking with the angels right now afterwards. Okay? We are not biting. Yes.